First up, SCAT TV's Gordon Nelson brings us a story about the historic mural inside the Union Square post office. During the Depression and the New Deal, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt government built over 1,100 post offices, 3 times what had been built during the previous 50 years. These buildings were meant to be grand and uplifting both on the inside and the outside.
Like many other post offices from that area, the one in Union Square has a mural inside. The U.S. Postal Service is selling off buildings across the country. The Somerville Post Office, listed at $2.5 million by a realtor in 2013, is now under a purchase and sale agreement.
In 1937, New England artist Ross Moffett painted the mural entitled "A Skirmish Between British and Colonists Near Somerville in Revolutionary Times."
So Ross Moffett is an American painter. He was an artist who was also employed under the New Deal and painted 3 murals for post offices here in Massachusetts, one in Holyoke, one in Revere, and then one here in Somerville, as well as other public art commissions around the U.S. His work is in the Smithsonian Museum as well as other public collections around the U.S. So the Somerville mural is pretty typical of his public art, which is to say that the figures are crisply delineated, easily recognizable. The motif is easy to take in instantly. And the figures are sort of spread across the entire mural so that there's a lot of breathing space, but a lot of action. And it's all heavily united because of the way that he sort of created rhythmic figures across the surface of the painting, and that's fairly typical of his large public works. His private works are a little more edgy and a little more derived from more avant-garde vocabularies. But this is really great typical muralism of the 1930s. We have a great example in our post office.
On March 6th, the city's Historic Preservation Commission held a meeting in order to gather comments on whether the Moffett mural should be left in place or moved once the post office has been sold.
From my perspective, I think it is a very important, building for Union Square historically. I think especially with regard to the mural, and again, this is just my view, I think the mural should be retained in the building.
The mural, I think, reflects that sort of Depression era history and that Depression regard for public works and public art. And so I think it's particularly important to preserve the mural as a piece of public art that stems from the Depression and to make sure that it's as accessible as possible to the general public.
The whole purpose of the New Deal murals, as they were painted, was to create these are democratizing spaces. As we're talking about places where people of all sorts always connect. Any public space where we all intersect would be a place I'd love to see it if it can't be there.
I mean, I think the question too is that whatever the existing use, you all through George should find out what is by right and what would require, if anything wasn't by right, what would require a special review process. So if it has to become, no, but the city does.
Right, but the Historic Preservation Commission has to.
Preservation doesn't have control of it. What I'm saying is to inform yourself more about what can be done. Amanda could find out that if it has to go through, special review process, then the planning board can be provided enough pressure to make that part of that lobby area open to the public.
We throw the phrase "the city" around. And I don't think the people I talk to really don't have a sense of how this process is being handled, who's handling it. Some members of the board, past and present, seem to have difficulty pinning down exactly what office or what individuals are making important, irreplaceable decisions on behalf of Somerville.
Some sent letters, which were read into the record.
To whom it may concern, I would like to add my voice to the discussion of the prospect.
The Historic Preservation Commission and city officials sent a letter with people's comments to the U.S. Postal Service the next day. The fate of the mural is still unknown. We'll be following this story. For Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Gordon Nelson.
I had no idea about all that history, but why didn't the city hold a larger meeting in order to get input from more people? And why did they hold it on the very last day possible before recommendations were due?
Our reporters weren't able to find that out before this newscast, but they'll be looking into that question. They did discover two things. One is that a number of cities, elected officials, and community groups are fighting to halt the sales of New Deal-era post offices. And the other is that the Union Square landmark might not be sold just yet. Congress is worried that historic preservation rules aren't being followed, so in January, they recommended that all sales be suspended for now, and they asked the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation to look into the matter. The council will report to Congress on April 17th and is now requesting comments.
What can people do to express their opinions or to find out more information?
Interested parties should contact their elected representatives, and they can also write to Naja Duval-Gabriel at the council by email at ngabriel@achp.gov or by fax 202-606-5072. Submit your comments by April 1st. For more information, check out the council's website, achp.gov.
Thank you.